I'm here today to talk about a love story, which I'm pretty sure all of us have experienced love in our lives. My first love story is with a lady, obviously. I've known this lady for 28 years of my life, going strong. Now, this lady here in my story was a rubber tapper. She came with zero schooling qualification. In a sense, she has never went to any school before, but she has managed to raise up 6 successful kids. When I got to know this lady and I had fallen in love with her, I asked myself, what can she teach me throughout my life? With no education, she lived in poverty together with her husband at that time. But she taught me a very important lesson, and that was the education of character and value. She taught me values like respect for your elders. She taught me the values of family bonds. She taught me the values of respect, which in my kind of work today tends to be eroding or deteriorating among our modern day city-dwelling youths to a certain extent. But she taught me all that. Despite not having all the riches in the world, despite having zero education, she taught me how is it or what can you be to be a great character of great value. My next love story comes from a couple whom I've also known for 28 years of my life. They had a vision. They started a tuition business, which I find it quite funny. They started a tuition business for the poor. Can you imagine, way back in the 1990s, how much would a subject cost a month for you to go for tuition? Usually it'll be around 30 to 40 ringgit for a subject. This couple believed that education should be accessible for all, so they only charge 7 ringgit a subject in a month. So for example, you can send your kids to their tuition center and you would take up mathematics, the English language, and science, so you would just be paying 21 ringgit a month for your kids' education. Now, these two couples are lovely couples. They've inspired me so much in my life. They are my parents. And one thing I really appreciate, the education that they gave me, was that they allowed me to disturb them while I was young, growing up in their office. They allowed me to go into the classes, to intrude the classes, I would say, when the teachers are not in yet, to grab a bit of chalk and start scribbling on the boards. I didn't know that during that time, my parents were encouraging me to experiment and prototype, to learn from failures and to have that audacity, that courage to teach. I was 5 or 6 years old. What do I know? But all I could remember, if I've learned about hypothesis, or if I've learned how the plants absorb the rays of the sun to produce and to grow, I would teach that in the class. But they have opened up my perspective. That was the second type of education that I was exposed to, prototyping and experimenting at a young age. But also, I learned the powerful value. Education should be available for everyone, as shown through my parents, through their tuition center that they had in a small town called Bukit Metajam in the mainland of Penang. This is my alma mater, a great place that I like to call my school. This is Sekolah Menengah Kebangsaan Tinggi Bukit Metajam, or fondly known as Bukit Metajam High School. Now bear with me. Let me share with you my story when I was in this school. It wasn't all beds and roses. When I was in this school, I was not your typical top achiever. I wasn't anywhere near. In fact, I was an average student because I was studying in a stream of subjects that I didn't like, which is a point I'll get to you later. But the thing was, I was bullied in school because I was weak in sports. And during the early 2000s, when you had just enrolled into high school, people tend to see you as being cool if you are very good in sports. I wasn't. I was isolated, I was alienated by my peers just because I couldn't kick a football. Just because if I had represented a sports house, I was bent on losing. I was determined. I was labeled as a loser to begin with. So one day I decided to change my faith. I was bullied all throughout my life. I came from a medium family who loved me a lot, and I never blamed them for the limits or the limitations that I have. But in school one day I decided that I want to change my life, and I wanted to win the first race in my life. I was 15 during that time. And I wanted to do it at the grandest stage of them all. My school's Diamond Jubilee year on my sports day. 900 people was in the audience. I practiced for 2 months non-stop. It came to my sports day, and I could still remember as I was preparing to hear the whistle blown by the referee, by the coach, and I would run. I would run that 100-meter sprint race, the most important race in my life. Of course, usually how a Cinderella story would end, I would have run and I would have won that race. But unfortunately, that isn't how it ended. I wanted to win the first race in my life, but I didn't know that would also become the last race of my life. I took 2 steps and I fell. The next step, I tried to pick myself up. For the first time, someone was telling me right into my ears, "Don't get up." And I was shocked. And I thought in life, when you fall down, people teach you how to pick yourself up. Am I right? But my coach told me saying that don't pick yourself up because your knee is no longer in your body. My left knee came out of my body and I was in a terrible mess. And I still remember the volunteers who were there, who were obviously laughing at me lying down there on the floor, kneeled down and asked me a question that changed my life. "Michael, does that hurt?" And I remember answering him, "What do you think?" I didn't say yes. I said, "What did you think?" And he said, "It must hurt a lot." Since that day, I've decided to adopt a motto that I live all my life. Never wait for opportunities to come. Instead, create your own opportunity. Now what happened? I was in the cast for 3 months. I went back to school in crutches. People were laughing at me. People were using my cast as a drawing board. They were writing a lot of imaginary languages, the most foul language you can imagine. I just don't know why they're so mean to me. I don't know, maybe because I'm weak in sports or something. Now what happened was this, I decided to change my life. I decided that if I'm not going to be good in sports, I'm going to do sports to be healthy. But I'm going to explore other realms of activities. So it was during that time that I participated in a lot of leadership competitions and public speaking competitions. Now, I haven't told you yet what education value did this school teach me. Now, during that time, my school, even up until today, is what we call a cluster school. Do you all know what's a cluster school? It's a school for selected students. Now, during my time, they have this segregation process. If you are the best student, you would be pushed up to the first class. Straight A's, SPM, go-getter. Fantastic, congratulations. If you are a not-so-good student, you'll be pushed down to the last class of the spectrum, where they deem you as no hope, good luck with your life. Now, this is what happened. Out of 11 classes in my Form 4 and Form 5 stream, I was placed in the 5th class. So I was okay. And I was all right. Now here's the thing. The one value that this school had taught me was to be proactive and to not wait for opportunities, as I've shared. I still recall during that time when I wanted to get involved in leadership positions, I had to line up outside of the staff room. Right? I have to line up outside the staff room and literally beg my teacher to give me an opportunity to join a competition. Now, we understand that school teachers are very busy, am I right? So what happened is that when you have a student, standing outside of the class, just smiling at every passing teacher until that one teacher comes along, we call that penolong co-curriculum. The teacher in charge of extra co-curricular activities, and when he came along, I would go up to him and say, Cikgu, teacher, are there any new competitions today? Are there new assignments? Are there new projects today? Now, during that time, the teacher would always tell me, Michael, think about the school. You are in the 5th class. You are an average student. Think about the school. When we join competitions, we want to win competition. Because of that, you should give opportunity to people in the 1st class. And I thought, please teacher, let me try. And that was my routine every day during recess time. When we're out for lunch breaks, I would usually leave the class 5 minutes earlier. I'll go to the canteen and I would buy a small container of nuggets, chicken nuggets from the canteen. I would pour tomato sauce in it. I would go outside the teacher's room and I would just stand there and be eating. The prefect would come and say, I'll write your name. You're not allowed to do this here. I said, please write my name. Please write my name. It's okay. And then when the teacher passed by, I would ask opportunities from him. Now, here is when the lesson comes. One day, my teacher got so fed up of me, he said, all right, I'll tell you what. We have to send a team to this Intel competition. It's an innovation and science competition. The last time I checked, you could barely pass your physics. You have no hope in chemistry. Your bio, you barely survive. And let's not talk about your additional maths. So what happened was I said, teacher, please let me. He said, you know what? Deadline is in 15 minutes. I'll tell you what. You got the deal, but this is the only deal you're going to get. And I said, okay, cool. What happened was I then went to Intel. I competed in the competition there, and it shocked me. I was there, and I kid you not, I was actually the dumbest student there. The rest of them, they were telling me, what is the chemistry formula of H2O plus glucose or whatever? See, I'm still bad in chemistry today. But they were telling me all these formulas, and they were asking me, what grades did you get for your SPM trials? And I couldn't say, actually, I got a D, actually. I wasn't so proud about it, but hey, I tried my best. Now, what happened was, during that time, when the competition started, we were supposed to come up with an invention that Intel would see viable to invest in, and then they would bring it up to the international level. Now, what shocked me was this. All these students who competed with me, they were all from the best schools in Malaysia. They were the best. Their academic results were all straight A1s. We're not talking about A2s here, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about A1s here during my time. When I joined that competition for 3 days, on the last day, when Intel made their announcement of who won, I was shocked. My team won. And I figured, wait a minute. We do not know any scientific formulas. We do not know any chemistry formulas. And when we asked the judges, why did we win? And they said, well, here's the thing. The other teams, when we went around and visit their inventions, they were telling us about how great this chemistry formula was how it would mix to become another chemistry formula, how the physics was justified. Fantastic, superb. But what your team did was that you explained to us how much money are we going to make if we invest in your project, how much profit are we going to make if we roll this out in the market. And our judges, who are all CEOs and business leaders, they liked yours better, so we thought we'd let you win. And then what happened was, it started like a snowball right after that. You know, it started when my teacher was shocked, my school was shocked, and they were like, what's going on here? It has basically deleted all the stereotypes that top students mean top projects. For my case, I said, you know what? I was so bad in science. The only way I could justify my project was to tell the judges how much money they can make if they sell my project, which obviously interested them more. So what happened was, I came to realize a very important lesson here. Are we teaching for the sake of teaching theories, or are we teaching so that our students can acquire skills that they can justify in their lives and that they can use it for their everyday means? Because at the end of the day, you can be developing a top talent, but if the top talent is only able to tell you theories from the textbook and wouldn't able to add value to the employers, to the scientific community, to university community that they serve, then I would say that investment should be prompted up a little, should be pushed more to learn more. So this is the school that gave me so much. And ever since that day, I started joining more and more competition. My teacher woke up And I started monopolizing the scene in my school. I started joining so much. Now, the major lesson I want to share with all of you, ladies and gentlemen, despite the limits that my school have imposed on me, one of the things I realized is that we need to shift our mindset. Shifting our mindset by not surrendering to a stereotypical perspective, for not surrendering to what education should be as told to us. We should redefine education that works for us. Education that we can best apply its values. My next love story is with our lovely country, Malaysia. This is very close to my heart, and I'll tell you why. I was very fortunate. Remember that rubber tapper lady that I shared with you, that I've known her for 28 years of my life? Well, she met a good husband, whom I've also known for, I think, 23 years of my life. Her husband passed away, unfortunately. They have managed to save up some money to send me abroad for studies. It's what I call grandpa and grandma funding. Okay? So you would now know that that rubber tapper lady that I was referring to is my grandmother. Okay? Now, when I was sent abroad to study, I had a chance to study in New Zealand on my grandpa and grandma's funds. Very fun. However, when I was there in New Zealand, I was told to fend for myself. So I distributed flyers on the streets. So ladies and gentlemen, when you leave this hall today, and if you see someone intending to give you a flyer, please, by the love of God, don't turn them away. At least accept the flyer with a smile and say thank you. Because I've been there. I've been there where I would be standing right here distributing flyers, and you have students, international students, walking at the horizon. You could see them walking towards me. But what happened was they would take a 10-minute detour to just avoid me. One thing they didn't know was I have lived in New Zealand, in Auckland, for 1 year at that time. I knew all the shortcuts. I took my flyers. I beat them at the other shortcut, and I gave them the flyer. But guess what? They beat me again. They saw me at the other shortcut and they walked back. Wow. Again, be nice to all those people who distribute flyers to you, okay? So I was there working in New Zealand, distributing flyers, while at the same time being an international student in Auckland University of Technology, AUT, in New Zealand. Now, when I was there, obviously coming from Malaysia, the first perception that people have of you is that you're not from an English language speaking native country. You shouldn't be able to communicate in the English language that well. I faced that discrimination, that wrong perception as well. Did I let that stop me? Nope. What happened was this. A very powerful lesson that I want to share with you here is that learn to love what you have. Make the best of all the resources you have within your hands right now. And of course, love your country. When I was there, I gave flyers, and then I started to join competitions just like in high school. I started to participate in projects where I train up young entrepreneurs, where I train up young executives to be at their peak performing state. And at the end of my 2 years there in New Zealand, I started marketing an international business. I remember asking my colleagues or my peers at that time, what would you want? And they say, we would want a letter from the dean. We would want a testimonial from our professor. And I told them, I said, you know what? I'm going to get a handwritten testimonial from the highest source of leadership in New Zealand at that time, the Prime Minister. And they were shocked. They were like, number one, you're holding a red passport. That's a Malaysian passport. Why would our Prime Minister even give you any testimonial? And I told them, I said, because I believe we're doing great work for the community. And sure enough, I wrote a letter to the then Prime Minister, Helen Clark. She wrote a testimonial back to me. So it was quite interesting. When I went to my first employer and he was looking for a letter of recommendations or referrals, the first letter he got was from the Prime Minister of New Zealand. Now, why is that? Being Malaysian, no matter where I went or where I would go, people would have this perception sometimes that you're not from an English language speaking country, you shouldn't be able to communicate well in English. Wow, what makes you think you could lead us? But from time to time, what I've learned is to persevere. From time to time, I always share this in my talks with students. I always share with them that be proud that you're Malaysian. Yes, be proud. Sometimes when you speak English, you can have the la, don't la, see la, can la, okay la. But that is your identity. That is our unique identity. Be proud of it. And it has brought me far. One more story I want to share with you, which is related to my exposure overseas, was in the year 2011. To cut a long story short, I joined the world's largest social entrepreneurship competition in the UK. It was contested among 45,000 people from 168 countries. At the end of the day, they were going to select only two winners, a male and a female. The females category was won by my good colleague from the United States, a CNBC reporter. Great, a lot of respect to her. No one have ever thought that the males category for global youth icon would be won by the youngest participant at that time, at the age of 23, a Malaysian, who everybody thought at that time in the UK during the competition, I don't think he can speak good English. But you see what I'm trying to get here is that oftentimes people want to forget, people want to throw away their unique identity. What I'm challenging all of you now to think is as you teach your students, educate them to embrace who they are, educate them to embrace their unique identity. The English language is important. If you're not so good at it, get some help. But never ever throw away what makes us Malaysians special. Thank you. Everything we see is a perspective. Everything we hear is an opinion. No one can define who you are at the end of the day. You need to define yourself. As educators, if you are just going into classes to teach your students every day, finishing up the syllabus, I would humbly like to challenge that with you. And the challenge would be, don't think about teaching your students only, think about inspiring them at the same time. Now, as time went on and I grew up, obviously, I started my own talent development company called Thriving Talents. Now, during this time when we were in the market in the year 2012, everybody just thought we were crazy because we were so young and we're going out there to work with the top companies, providing soft skills development, leadership development, communication, sales training for all these companies. We didn't stop. I told my team, I said, just go out there and hustle. If we can deliver value, we should make the client know, make them feel that they can get value out of us as well. So we went out there, and without having that self-defeating perspective, we work with Fortune 500 companies today, spanning across 38 countries, providing them with talent development and leadership training. At the same time as well, who would have thought a little startup that was set up in Malaysia, a one-man show at that time, in the year 2012, would be interviewed by the likes of CNN 3 times to talk about our philosophy on talent development. We are Malaysian. We are a Malaysian company. We have managed to achieve that because we never let doubt limit us. And if you remember the 3 lessons that the 3 people I've fallen in love with taught me, my grandparents, my parents, and my school, is to have value, is to remember who you are as a character, is to be proactive, is to teach students thinking skills, is to educate people skills to think on how they can embrace who they are and then share and unleash their unlimited creativity and potential onto the world. This is a little story about us. At the same time as well, sowing the seed of greatness. That's a picture of my grandmother and my mother with me. And this is a book that I've co-authored. And these are the different people whom I've met throughout my service to 38 countries, from Kenya to all the way up to Zimbabwe, to even South America, to Peru, Guatemala, and Honduras. Why is this an important phrase for me? When I was young, coming from a traditional Hokkien family, my grandfather would give me a name that is so meaningful among the Chinese people. And I was named Zhang Su Ling. If any of you understand Mandarin, that literally means forest. And I remember during that time when my grandfather was still around, I went up to him and I said, Gong Gong, I have a question. You know my cousins are named Raining Wealth. My brother is named Everyday Money Come. All right? But my name is Chang Su Ling. It means forest. Why forest? Shouldn't I be named something like, wow, unlimited wealth, unlimited wisdom? And then my grandfather, my late grandfather, told me this story. He said, you know, Chang Su Ling, it means forest. You know what it means? And he said, you know, in a forest, what do you see in a forest? Trees. What do you see in the trees? Birds. What do you see in the birds? Below the trees. Mouse, deers, I don't know, a crab, a wild boar, all living things. He said, exactly. I named you forest is because it's very symbolic. Your very existence on this world today is important because everyone else will rely on you to live. You are the ecosystem. You are the forest. You provide sunlight, you provide food so that other animals and other plants could thrive on. And I was very young, 8 years old. I was like, oh my goodness, I still prefer money. All right, that's cool. And today I learned what my late grandfather meant. When he brought me up to chase those little ducks and chickens by the railroad, when I wanted that favorite toy, and he would often tell me, our family don't have enough money, so it's okay, play with the toys you have right now. Now I know how important those lessons were. He sowed in the seed of greatness in me. He inspired me to use whatever I have to create the best maximum value out of what I have. And I can never thank you or thank him enough for that. So that's my story. And then I gone on to write a book where I interviewed the world's most high-achieving young people. And when people ask me, why don't you write a story about yourself? I said, not yet. I want to write stories of the world's most high-achieving people because I want other people to know if they can achieve it, so can they themselves. And that project ran on a shoestring budget. Thank God I have 16 volunteers who helped me with the book. And one more lesson I want to share with you. If you have a great idea, if that idea contributes to the community, don't be shy of sharing it out. You may be running a school, you may be running a center right now. In your mind, you may think, who in the right mind is going to volunteer in my project if I'm not going to pay them? Believe me, the world is going to surprise you. If your project has a good intent, if your activity is going to produce goodness to others, shout it out, tell people. You'll be surprised of how many people will join in your project, in your campaign. Last but not least, love can inspire the world. 3 parties showed me the greatest love today. My grandparents and my parents, my school teachers, I love them, and my university in New Zealand for providing me with a great opportunity to be a Malaysian in an overseas country and yet can be proud to be a Malaysian. At the end of the day today, I'm proud to share that last year, I don't know how many people would have this, but it was surreal. We were conducting a talk just like this, a workshop, and 2 special guests walked in. The special guests were President Barack Obama and our Prime Minister. So he came and visited those students who was part of a workshop that we were doing with our favorite client, Microsoft. So this clearly shows that the very foundations that you're building among your students can create something even bigger. Now my school teachers, and I heard this from my other school teachers, they are now going around telling their students that, did you know I taught this student whom he taught other students that the president and the prime minister came to his class. Cool, right? So you all should listen to me. Wow, I appreciated that. And at the same time, a lot of dreams came true. I must say that right after my studies in New Zealand, I was awarded a scholarship to go to Harvard to attend their programs there in international relations. I was then offered a scholarship to go to Stanford University to study entrepreneurship. And my last scholarship as of this moment was from INSEAD in Singapore to study entrepreneurship as well. Now I hope I have all of you, if you could also pray for me and hope for me, I'm now embarking on a new project where I am now going for a scholarship from Cambridge University on strategic thinking and strategic leadership. So how did I manage to get these scholarships? You'll be surprised. I attended their interviews via Skype, and they did not look at my results alone. They were looking at character. They were looking at the values. They were looking at how often have you failed. Because every failure you have encountered means you have an opportunity to emerge triumphant. And I've always loved the way how they looked at us and the way how they selected us and the things that we have learned there. So, in a nutshell, I want to thank all of you for coming today. Remember, my take on education is how are you educating your students in terms of values? How are you educating your students in terms of the character of who they are and what they do? How are you encouraging your students to be proactive, to experiment with what you are teaching them? How are you educating your students to be proud with their limitations, but at the same time, make the best of their own capabilities? I believe teachers today, you play a huge role. Your role is no longer limited towards teaching. Your role is to inspire greatness among the students. Now, before I leave the stage, I have one favor to ask. Is that okay? Are there any ELS teachers here or ELS staff? Can I see a raise of hands, please? Okay, can we do this a little bit more? Can I get all of you to stand up, please? ELS teachers and ELS staff. Thank you. Teachers and staff, right? All from ELS? Can I hear some energy right here? Teachers and staff, right? Awesome. Sorry to keep you standing, but I have a confession to make. And it's a confession that I'm proud to make as well. Okay? I want to thank you, all of you, particularly. I want to thank all the audience, but I want to single this out to all of you first. You know why? I was a level 9 English language graduate of ELS. I'm proud to admit that because I believe through ELS, revolutionary education system, when I joined them in the early 2000s, they really opened up my mind. And they were, all of you, are a part of who I am today. So, if I may, everybody, please give yourself a huge round of applause. And thank you so much for your time. This concludes my sharing session for today. I'll be around. I'd love to have a chat with all of you, but believe in what you do and go back there and inspire your students. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.